Hello everyone, we are on chapter 34 of The Treasure Hunter's Tale. If you wondered about my hair, it's raining outside and I have to keep on going outside to swoosh the water off the top of the hot tub. So, and I've had to do it multiple times, so I'm just like, stuff it. So that's why my hair looks not good. Anyway, just for those of you who are super observant. Right. When the treasure hunters arrived at the town, they were quickly brought up to speed and so suggested they stay a while so that they could help Mr. Newhart with his mission while he recovered from the loss of Levi and the joys and struggles of having a newborn in the house. We'll stay until the lad is weaned, suggested Mr. Discover the Truth as he held Iron and cooed over him. I wager you will need the extra hands, he said, smiling up at the parents. Thank you, brother, said Mr. Newhart. And we can help out with the various church services and things, said Mr. Saved by Grace, and Mr. Ears to Hear agreed readily. The three hunters had formed a strong bond while they had been away, for they had been through some very challenging times, of which they had the scars and the deeper wisdom to prove it. Then, what a delight it was to celebrate the baptism of Freddie and the other two. It was especially lovely timing because on the very morning of the baptism, the smith and his family, who you remember were walking on the King's Road, arrived in the town once more. They were very encouraged to see its new name and how much had changed since their absence. Mrs. Ernest, who was very good at listening, learnt very quickly what she needed to about the kidnapping and Freddie and the wedding and the church. She gave Mrs. Beloved the King a huge hug, for you must understand that this was the first time they had seen each other since the burning incident so long ago. The whole town seemed to be by the riverside for the baptism, and it was a wonderful opportunity to teach people about this very important gift that the king had given to his people to show that they belonged to him. Freddie gave his testimony, telling everyone in a good strong voice how he came to know and love the king, and what he had learned of him since, and how he had grown to love him even more. He then walked down to the river where Mr. Saved by Grace and Mr. Discover the Truth were there to help him into the deeper part, where they baptized him in the name of the king, his son Prince Emmanuel, and in the name of the officer. As Freddie came up out of the water, he could see the faces of his family and friends smiling, and even one of the boys he had invited waved shyly at him. Mrs. My Weakness is His Strength chose a wonderful hymn to be sung afterwards, and their master served the Lord gave his testimony. He was particularly overjoyed to see that the young man that he had fought that one time was also there. He was slightly hiding behind a big stack of bulrushes, but Serve the Lord saw him, and he prayed hard for the opportunity to talk to him afterwards. Everyone was invited back to the church for a celebration meal, which Mrs. My Weakness is His Strength and Mrs. Ernest had put together beautifully, and it was so wonderful to see the church building full to bursting. Oh, King, may this building be always bursting at the seams, as it is this day, but full of people who love you and want to know you, prayed Mr. Newhart fervently. The months went by, and Iron grew healthy and strong. When he was first brought home, there were some people in the town who were a little standoffish or judgmental, but with the winsomeness of the family and seeing how much joy Iron had brought to them, everyone soon just accepted that Iron was just as much a member of the family and community as Hope or Freddie were. Miss Poor in Spirit loved being a grandmother and was an absolute source of support to Mrs. Beloved of the King, especially as Mr. Newhart had to spend long hours studying the King's book so he could teach people about it the next Sunday at church. Hope had started school and was enjoying learning her letters and numbers, and Freddie, who was now 13, had started to work on Saturdays, helping the town baker with his deliveries. On one of his deliveries, he overheard some talk about a dragon having been spotted in the area, and he hurried home to tell his father and the hunters. Then I suspect we will soon meet Mr. Set Free, smiled Mr. Newhart happily. And may I help him, father? Asked Freddie. If he will have you, said his father. Oh dear, really, darling? Questioned Mrs. Beloved of the King. Freddie is still so young. Oh, but mother, I'm going to be a man soon, and I do want to do something for the king. And besides, Freddie thought to himself, I need to practice my sword skills for when the wolves come. We'll see, said his mother. I will discuss it properly with your father tonight, she promised as she saw Freddie's earnest face. That night the parents had a long discussion with one another and came to the conclusion that they would let Freddie go as long as Mr. Set Free was okay with the idea. Mr. Set Free, who of course soon arrived in the town tracking the beast, and I will remind you had been given the new commission from the king of training and recruiting other young men to slay these dragons, was only too pleased to hear Freddie wanted to come and help. Johnny, the smith's son, had been talking to Freddie too, and he also wanted to join in the hunt. And so, when the dragon flew over one of the farms on the outskirts of the town and burnt it to cinders, Mr. Set Free had a good band of soldiers to make good their attack. Mr. Newhart had invited the farmer and his wife to come and stay with them while they rebuilt the farmhouse, and one of the farmer's sons had expressed a desire to join in the fight against the dragon too. The mothers and wives prayed hard that morning as they waved goodbye to the men. Freddie and Johnny felt like real men marching off with all the other men to fight and slay the dragon. They had all made sure their swords were sharp and ready and had prepared themselves for battle. They were walking purposefully along together as one band when, from the field, there came a blood-curdling scream. They broke into a run and arrived just to see the great beast flying away. There were 2 men the dragon had left, very shaken up. Their armour, which was made of a lighter metal, had simply curled off like when you open a tin of tuna. Freddie noticed the difference in the armour. It was not like the armour of the king, but it did look similar. Indeed, he noticed the armour more than everyone else, who were busy administering support and help to the men. "Oh, thank you," cried one of the men. "If you had not come, I don't know what would have happened." Freddie was looking at the men. He noticed that they were very shaken, but not actually wounded. "How come you don't have any scratches?" he asked, trying to sound as concerned as everyone else. "Oh, well, like I said," the man quickly, "you came just in time. I screamed out when I saw that beast, and you heard me and came running, and the beast must have seen you and flown off." "Well, you're all right now," said Ears to Hear. "Where are you from?" asked Mr. Saved-by-Grace. The men looked at each other and then at the group crowding around them. "We're from a town over yonder," they said, pointing vaguely in the direction of the way they had come. "We are but poor preachers looking for a place to tell people our good news." "Welcome, then," said Mr. Setfree, "for we know this good news too." "Oh, do you?" said one of the men. "Our good news is one everyone loves to hear," he said enthusiastically. Freddie noticed that he said our good news instead of the good news, and he was puzzled. "Yes," chimed in the other man, "to know that the king loves everyone so much and will accept them no matter what." The 2 men smiled. Freddie did not like the way they smiled. It made him feel like they were hiding something, but everyone else seemed to be okay with it, so he kept his thoughts to himself. "Well then," said the 2 men, "thank you all for your help, and if you will just point us in the direction of your town, we will go there and start spreading our word." They shook hands with everyone and walked off, not even limping. Again.